Raphael,
Hello.
how goes it?
Good, and you?
Good. Let me just pause the recording here as soon as I get the host key. Everyone, welcome to the March 2nd OpenJS Security Collab Space meeting. Thanks to everyone who's joining. We've got links to the HackMD and the issue in the chat, which I'm putting in now just in case anyone's missed it. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is, oh boy, lots of stuff being added to the agenda. That's cool. Okay. Security guidelines. Okay, so let me share with you this issue. So where we left this is we had a very preliminary draft of some security guidelines that might be appropriate for OpenJS projects. And we wanted to open this up to feedback. So I did post this in the security Slack channel, which is a much wider audience than what we have here. And I pasted the comments and feedback that we got into the issue at the very bottom without people's names. So feel free to take a look at this, but like the vibe I got was a couple things. One is there was some bristling, I would say, at some of the overhead that this is going to add for folks. And folks weren't super pleased with that. And then there was a couple just like real questions about, hey, some of this is duplicate, some of this doesn't make sense, stuff like that. That's just sort of like general comments. Um, so yeah, this is an interesting one because part of me is like, OpenJS projects should have some of these guidelines. Um, but also we're adding this after projects have joined as kind of like a new requirement. And so I understand why that might be, you know, folks might object to that. So I think there's a couple ways that we can move forward, but I'd like to hear other feedback from folks once they glance at some of the comments here.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's always a thing we're going to struggle with. It's something that we were always really hyper vigilant on, sort of broken record repeating anytime
Mhm.
we were working on guidelines, was like, we're asking maintainers to do stuff. Let's make it as frictionless as possible, and let's not ask them to do too much and not do things that are really performative security theater stuff and all of that. So
Yeah,
it's not something that we're totally like unexpected, right? Um,
yeah,
I don't remember. I did look at one of the issues I think that you're referring to where there was some pushback or whatever. I don't remember if it was in Slack or where I saw it. Um, but I also um, I think that like I don't remember how many people or who, but there might be some of it might be like, let's not assume that like the couple of people speaking out are necessarily representative of everybody that might be
yeah. That's a
saying
good
something.
call.
Um, and like there is a little bit of a maybe like a PR aspect to this where it's like we're not trying to make you jump through hoops or do extra stuff. Like like this is like all this effort and stuff is supposed to be helpful to the projects. We're trying to be of service and we're trying to make things easier for you and give you a thing to go, hey, like are these things in place? Um, or are these things that you need to check? And I understand that even then, sometimes maintainers don't want to, do extra, like they just view it as extra stuff, right? And they don't really have time for that. A lot of times they don't have time to put into maintaining the projects that they're maintaining in the first place. So yeah, I don't know what you know, the great answer is here, but um, yeah, I'll just sort of leave it at that. My jumbled
I
thoughts this morning.
yeah, I read through everything today, Ben, and I didn't get much of a sense there was too much pushback in general, except
Okay.
on a couple like things was like the 14-day SLA on responding
Yeah.
seemed like the biggest pushback to me. Um I mean, I think there was, yeah, I think what you're saying, there's a general pushback in the additional work to go through the tiers potentially,
Yeah.
but if you're giving projects a timeline, like say, hey, before your next, review, I saw that somewhere. That's a year. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like just and we're not. I felt like we are not asking for much in the current approach. We have enough prescriptive guidance that it, it's all pretty straightforward, and I think it's table stakes at this point
Mhm.
for a lot of that. And I think there's the argument about, how many people should be in your GitHub org, that kind of thing. I think, yeah, we can change the wording around that to make it flexible for them. That's minor in my opinion. It was more
Mhm.
and then somebody did make a good point. There were some repeated things like having an
Yeah.
MFA in one section and then having it again in the next section.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
but that's just tuning up, I think, some of the documentation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's true. And the documents that there was some stuff that was outdated. So I think like
yeah.
as a concrete next step, I think what I'd like to do is go through what we proposed with the comments in mind and clean up those little things, those little nits, and just ensure that that the asks that we're asking here are really the things that need to be required and not performative, like what Chris was saying, which I think they are. But I think just having that in the back of my head when reviewing these, I think is a good idea. But I think, yeah, if I fix up those things, just take another look to make sure that these things are all right and that the documentation that they report to is or link to is correct, then I think we might have something that we can put forward to the CPC. Okay.
There was an
All right, cool.
interesting comment on Slack. I think it was from Express or not Express, Mocha maybe, about moving projects under the org of in GitHub.
Mhm.
Is that a possibility or not?
Um,
Because you can control a lot of the settings and everything from the quote
yeah,
unquote enterprise slash master org level
yeah.
on the orgs and repos in your
Yeah, now that we have
enterprise.
the enterprise setup, that is an option. It's not, it doesn't come without restrictions.
Oh yeah.
So it can impact how people, how the projects operate. So it's definitely an option. It's preferred, but it's an opt-in thing for projects.
Should that go under the tier
That's
three
already
potentially?
Say that again. Sorry.
I was just wondering, should that be a tier three type of activity? Or
Interesting.
do we need more governance around, not even governance, more thought around it first before we even put it in?
what do you
Maybe
mean
Yeah,
it's
by
a
tier
maybe
three?
to do item. Well, there's the different tiers of the security approach in the documentation. There's tier one, which I think was just getting in, and then tier two, some additional steps, and then tier three was like, go to town. And I don't know, just wondering.
I think we need a little bit more thinking around it because it's nuanced because it can impact things like billing, it can impact some
Okay.
permissions. And so
Yeah.
there's things to understand there. Like, I'm pretty familiar with Node.js's org, and yeah, like if they ever wanted to move under the OpenJS Foundation's enterprise org, it would be
That's
a
massive.
lot of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's for smaller projects, I think it can make sense because there's some consolidated billing that we can do and other things, but it's probably a case by case basis depending on how complicated the project is. And I'm not sure for many of these projects it benefits them.
That's true.
And
I was just thinking, oh,
it
sorry,
technically has been
Chris.
an option for some time. At the very least, when we did the GitHub, the continuity policy stuff, because one of the options to resolve that was to move your
Org.
org underneath the OpenJS GitHub org. I don't
Yeah.
know if
Gotcha.
anybody's done that,
Yeah,
but
we have
that
had a
was one
couple,
of. Okay,
mostly super small ones like
that's
yeah,
what I
like
would expect. And like, I would make me nervous. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Steve. You were gonna say something.
No, no, I think I was just kind of piling on a little bit, so I'm good.
okay. Yeah, I think like I have some concerns there. Like there's this balance between continuity and also security and self-management also. So those all need to be balanced. Okay, so I'll make another run at this document and then send around uh, an updated version for review, and then maybe we can get this in front of the CPC next week.
I
Okay.
read through it today, and noticed I made a couple edits, just
Oh,
minor
great.
things.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
nothing major.
Okay. All right. Next on the list here, these are just in the order that they were added, not in priority order. So there's this one. So I added this one. And essentially the issue here is that the security mailing list that we have is often listed as an escalation path on security policies for projects that are part of OpenJS. So as an example, projects will say, hey, if you haven't heard a response for your security vulnerability report in 14 days, please, email the security list, the foundation. And so with everything that's happening with an increase in folks using AI to look at projects, we're getting more of these. And so I've been sort of responding to them as they come in and trying to connect them with folks on the project. But I did think it would be a good idea for us to think about how we want to handle these, given that up until last month, we didn't get any of these, and now we're getting a lot. Um, and so I just wanted to open this up for conversation here and to understand maybe some approaches. My concern is that it's a scaling issue. So like if I am sort of triaging these reports and trying to contact these other projects, it's very manual. And I'm happy to do that if it's the right thing to do, but I don't want it to be something that we're just doing because we haven't really thought about critically the process here.
Well, there's a couple aspects of this. One is the escalation path route itself and why do
Mhm.
people use it and what do we do when they go to it. And the further we can move, we can shift the problem left or right, depending on how you want to look at it, the better.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
so I think that the email list needs to be there. The key is that we don't want to be fielding stuff there unnecessarily. So we have to look at why stuff is going there. I know one of the things has been the Node project, and I'm not singling out the Node project because they're not the only reports we're getting, but just one example, has introduced the signal requirement for their normal reporting vector, which is HackerOne, which means some people can't even get the report. And so what are they going to do next? They're going to find another way to do the report. And that has been the email address. Now, last week or something like that, Raphael Ulysses wanted to change kind of the language, and because in the node security policy did say to email the OpenJS Foundation. Now it says to go to the message, this list of maintainer or security focals for Node in the OpenJS Slack. Maybe that will improve outcomes. That's a newer thing, right? That's brand new. Um, and so we'll see if that has traction. I didn't say this when we were talking about it before, but it's something to keep in mind is that a lot of people, especially like really hardcore security researchers, don't like to be using accounts and things, which is also why you always want to have an email address, even if you're using like GitHub PVR. Um,
Mhm.
and so you may not get that much traction with Slack. Um, I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. And then if the only recourse is to is to email the foundation, then they're going to continue to do that.
I
And
think
even when you provide these other routes for doing stuff, we still get email. Like I don't know why get, so many emails about Express stuff to the email address.
yeah.
Maybe it is just that. Maybe it is because they don't want to use a GitHub account to do PVR and which is the way we would prefer getting the reports. Um, so
Just
yeah.
to be specific here, I actually don't recall that many Node.js reports coming in. I have seen a
Hmm.
lot of reports from other projects, and the primary reason, in fact, the only reason, was that they haven't had a response in 14 days. And so in the security policy, so they filed the report via the
Yep.
normal GitHub security vulnerability thing for the project, and the project, for whatever reason, hasn't responded to them in 14 days.
Yeah, well, projects should be responding. They should at least be
Yeah.
acknowledging. Uh, because yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's
So I think,
what do you do when that happens? You reach out to the maintainers,
yeah. And so
and do
like
you get a
that's
response?
I usually have to poke around a little bit. So like there was one project where the person who usually responds to these was on parental leave. And so I was able to reach someone else for the project. And so in general, what I've been doing is, reaching out to individuals on the project to try and get them to at least acknowledge. So I think, I mean, maybe that's just fine for now, and I can keep an eye on this. Like, I don't want to over rotate on this. I think what I want to be sure is that like prior to me getting involved, right, these things go into the security queue, right? And so the first thing I want to double check is like any of these should I approve as messages to our security list. So just to be concrete here, like if someone says, "Hey, I submitted, I'm going to make this up, a security vulnerability on Node-RED. I haven't heard back in 14 days. Can you help?" Right. So in circumstances like that, should I uh, approve that for the security list? And then take it on myself or Kate to try and connect them to the right person on the project.
Um, yeah, what is the purpose of the approval mechanism? Like, why do we have that gated as
Why
opposed
is
to
it
just letting?
moderated? It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be. We do get a little bit of spam, but not a ton. But I can turn it off and see if that is um,
yeah.
if
I
that's
mean, to
okay.
be I don't
The
mind that it's on, but
Yeah,
like what I'm getting at is like if that's creating an extra burden unnecessarily on the subset of people who are
not
required to
really.
be dealing with that, then I wouldn't
I
want to
think
have that
yeah.
making your lives more difficult.
I think the thing I'm keying on here is like when something goes to the security list, it goes to a couple people, and I don't want them to see these messages and to feel that I don't want us to all be scrambling to do the same thing, right? So if a security report comes in and it goes to the mailing list, like I don't want folks on the mailing list to be duplicating the effort that I'm doing. So, um, and I think one of the issues if these things just come in is like unless I don't want Raphael or Ulysses to start, connect spending their cycles trying to connect people. So I don't know. It might be that we need a different list for just those security reports, or it's just a process thing that we all agree on that if anyone is doing an escalation, Ben or Kate will take a first stab at connecting them, and if it's a different issue, I'll manually tag in people in the security collab space. All right, so I think at least in this one, I'm going to say this. Okay, Ben will turn off moderation, see how that goes. And then it's understood that Ben or Kate will triage uh, escalation reports for other projects. Okay. And then we'll just keep an eye on it. And like I'll just keep kind of like a tally of how many of these come in. And if it really starts to get excessive, maybe we'll regroup and think about a different approach here. Does that seem okay?
Yeah.
Works for me.
Okay. Okay. Next up here is moving security reports to a public workflow.
It was me. I have added two items to the agenda just for awareness. It's not something that we need to take a decision, but it's just because more brains think better on everything, right? So um, most of the
Sometimes
times.
happen
Uh,
with brains too. Yeah.
so I've been poking around that with this new AI slot. I've been participating in different working groups and different discussions, mostly because of AI. AI is causing a lot of good things, but also a lot of pain to maintainers. And one of the problems we are facing at Node.js is the amount of security reports we are receiving. So just to summarize a bit, we created some measurements recently in the last 2 months. We have restricted our policies to submitting reports. We have increased the signal. We have created new strategies for reporting vulnerabilities just to include that as a barrier because we have not seen that. A lot of people were just bots or people that were targeting different projects using AI to submit reports and get bounties. Most of the times they don't read the security MD, they don't read the documentation, and then we spend a lot of time reviewing the report, and then in the end we say this is not applicable because this is clearly an exception or expected by the documentation. So those barriers helped. We have automations that close reports automatically. That's why it also increased the amount of emails you guys are getting. But I think it is what it is. Uh, but this is not solving the problem. Like we are still receiving a significant amount of reports, and people are poking us around. They are sending a message to me directly. It's not a lot, but I expect that number to grow. So I've been thinking in different strategies. We are discussing about dropping bounties because a lot of projects are considering the same. Like they are dropping bounties because they not see that people are just doing that because of bounties and these reduce the AS log. But I thought about a different approach, and that might sound too controversial. But imagine the situation. Everybody, or most of the time, people are using the same AI tool to find those reports, which means that anyone using a good cloud code subscription could fuzz your code base and find the same vulnerabilities we are receiving. Most of the time, they are not, right? So uh, it's not private anymore. Everybody could find that. So why we are creating that amount of workflows to handle private reports since everybody can find them. Like most of the triage reports that are going to the next security release of Node.js, they can be easily find by using any AI tool. So my assumption is that considering the fact everybody could find the same things, why we are handling things in private? If we change all the security reports to public, treat that as any issue, any pull request, people can find that in one day and release that in the following day. Otherwise, people will keep reporting that. Let's say we have reports from December that were not fixed yet, and we have closed, I don't know, more than 6 or 7 reports as duplicated because they found the same thing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that if we have handled that in regular release process, this was already fixed. And it was Richard that mentioned, but some patches from V8 they handle that in public for since a long time. Like it's not clearly that oh, this is a security issue. They don't comment that, but the patch is public. Anyone that wants to do reverse engineering, they could find security patches of Chromium V8 before they get out. So this has some precedence. So this is something that I would like to bring attention and bring some discussion. And I know that this sounds too drastic.
Let me make sure I understand. So kind of the thinking here is that because um, anyone using any of the off-the-shelf LLMs can find some of these security vulnerabilities, then the keeping them private as a security measure is kind of losing its effectiveness. Is that
Uh,
right?
I feel that
As part of it, yeah.
yes, I feel that this is more dangerous than finding that in public and releasing that tomorrow. Because
Yeah.
in the past, just a few people that really investigated the code base would be able to find, and then they would have that disclosure policy of 90 days of Node.js, a
Right.
security policy, and that's fine. But now more people, anyone could find spot the same issues. And considering if they go to the security release process, those issues will take way more time to fix than handling that in private, than handling that in public.
Interesting. Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Um, on the one, uh, yeah, this is not going to be an easy problem to solve. On the one thing about duplicate reports, I don't think you're going to get rid of those. Very few people are going to go see if the issue already exists. Especially the people that are like just doing AI assisted whatever and firing off the thing. They're not going to be checking because they're being so lazy in their process to begin with. They're not reading your threat model either, I'm sure. Um, the trouble with making is with going, oh, just make everything public, um, is there's no way to distinguish whether that issue is in this category of like, oh, all LLMs could detect it versus an issue that's like, no, and it's much more serious. And by immediately not having any vulnerabilities under an embargo, you're giving that as a gift to malicious attackers, right? They are going to immediately be querying whatever the mechanism is that everything is public, they're going to be scanning that thing constantly for anything new and doing zero-day exploits wherever they can. Um, the other thing wanted to mention was that you had said something about that the V8 Google stuff does a public workflow for everything. That is not true. I don't know what you're referring to there. I'd be interested to know what you're referring to there, but 100% not the case.
Uh,
I've even had to, as soon as I file a security issue with Chrome or V8, I can't even look at my own report. I've had to ask somebody at Google,
yeah.
hey, can
Um,
you add me as, somebody with permission to view that so that I can, stay in the loop on what's going on because I'm working with you on this security issue.
So for the first comment, when we move things to public, it means that we have more people, more maintainers that would be able to operate and triage those reports. Currently, we have just 4 on the security. So if we receive a bunch of duplicated, only those 4 people would be able to find that and close as duplicated. If we move that to public, we have more than 100 people that could take a look and link to the duplicated issue, and that's fine. And also that would be easily solved by any GitHub AI automation that find duplicated, and that's easy. About the V8, yes, V8 does the security workflow in private, but the patches are public. Once you create the pull request, those
Sure.
patches, I mean, I created the patch publicly, and it's public until I release that, which means that there are some gap where I could exploit that issue without being released.
Yes.
So I don't
100%.
see how that is different.
So, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Browsers release the security fixes for their stuff well in advance of disclosing. They reserve the CVE, they have it, but they don't publish it right away, and that's to protect the public. So, yes, the patches will be in there, but they're going to be sort of to some extent obfuscated, right? But yes, you're absolutely right that anybody can see the public code changes. Um, and yeah, but they have reasons for not disclosing right away via security advisory and CVEs until it's been out for some time. Part of that's also the rollout period, right? It doesn't immediately go to stable, right? It goes to nightlies and all that before it.
Yeah.
And then whatever comes after that, the beta period, I forget what they call it. Different browsers call it different things. So there's different reasons for them doing that. And Node does this the same thing, right? I assume to
No,
some extent. Um,
we only
but
share the patches when the release is out.
right. Um, so going back to what you said about making the thing public, and you said 100 people instead of 4 people could look at it. Um, why? But okay, maybe I'm not understanding when you say public. When you say public, I assume you're meaning public as in 8 billion people on the planet can see it and look at it. But if you mean public as in 100 people can look at it, that's a completely different calculus.
Uh,
So,
yes, yes. I mean, when I say 100, is that we have 100 active members on the Node.js node repository that could triage that report.
are they members of the
That
node?
issue. Yes,
Are they
node.org.
members of the node org?
Yes, yes, correct.
Okay, well, that's if we're saying make it visible to members of the node org, that's completely different than saying when you say public, I'm thinking I can look at it,
No,
and
no,
I'm not
yes,
in the
yes.
node org.
I'm meaning that. Let me clarify that. Um, Even that being public, you don't have, I don't know if you have, but you don't have powers to either close that report or move that report to premature disclosures in case of a zero-day vulnerability. And assume that you said that uh, handling that in public would not solve the duplicated issues problem because they won't read the opened issues, they won't read the threat model, and that's expected. But once they open the issue, we have more people with right access to the Node.js code base that would be able to close that issue and reduce that amount of AI slop. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying about assessing vulnerabilities, assessing reports. It's just that that amount of issues wouldn't be a problem in the Node.js case, in my opinion.
So maybe I'm not understanding. Somebody else maybe can help me out. It so would you be making these vulnerability reports available to the entire world or just to the node organization?
To the entire world. That's the idea.
Why would it make sense to maybe try before going to the extreme to go intermediary step? And because presumably, like, yes, somebody you've never heard of could be looking at it and go, no, it's not an issue. But like, you don't know who that person is. You haven't established any trust with that person. You're not just going to go, oh, Dan from Alabama said, that the thing's not a vulnerability, so let's close it. You're not going to do that, right? You need
No, yes.
something more authoritative. So why not do something in between and go, maybe let's make it available to the 100 people or however many are in the node org before you go and open it up to everyone and their mom.
The only reason is that if we create like an intermediary step is that we need to create a new workflow, and that would be a problem for us. And the fact I'm mentioning handling that in public is that handle that in the same way we handle any issue, fix a bug on Node.js or any pull request on Node.js. Someone open an issue about a potential vulnerability, someone else open a pull request fixing that, perhaps even the reporter. Then it go to the regular release process, so it can be issued tomorrow or in the next 3 days. It goes to main, go to an active release line. We assess that in parallel, and then if we decide, okay, this is a vulnerability, we can create a CVE after that's patched. If we make that intermediary, like if we make that restrict only to Node.js collaborators, we will still need to lock the CI, we still need to create a different security release mechanism workflow to land that patch. I don't know if you. It's just that I guess I need to put more context on it. The security release process in Node.js they takes a lot of time. Like it takes 26 steps for each active release line plus the security release steward. Then we need to lock down CI. When we lock down CI, people won't be able to land any pull request on Node.js because they share the same environment. So this is like we can't issue security release once per month, for instance.
Let me ask one question. Or yeah, so I don't know if it's a question, but like, can we like try and back test this in a sense of like with a couple of node vulnerabilities? Like what I mean is let's take three of the nastiest vulnerabilities that have ever occurred in the node project. And let's think about what would have happened if there had not been an embargo on that information. If that was public from day one, what impact, and it's hypothetical, right? We don't know because that's not what happened in reality. But like, let's think about what the consequences of that would have been. And what in the worst case scenario, if we're okay with whatever that would have been in the worst case scenario, then I think your plan is fine. If we're not okay with that, right, then maybe it requires some pause and consideration. Ulysses?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, even if we don't consider this way of working, like this new way of just going public and handle this in public as any other issue PR, basically, the problem long term is like it's not sustainable what we have right now in terms of managing security process. Anyway, so if we don't go this direction, we should find another direction because right now it's not sustainable at any
Yeah.
scale. I mean, it's not going to work. So yeah, we need to find a solution that might work. I know that like going public is very hard in the way that everybody in the universe will know vulnerabilities like ahead of time. I mean, for most of the cases are vulnerabilities that are not hard to exploit and stuff like that because the project is very mature in many ways, and also the features that we introduced recently are not that, age and stuff like that. And we go with experimental flags, and there's a lot of resources that we put in to prevent, just having these weird situations. But it's true that we can have a real nasty 0 days somehow that somewhere, that can be super nasty, and the people can exploit that widely. That otherwise, if we handle in private, the amount of people that know this and can exploit this is less than the full population of the universe within GitHub. I mean, with potential access to the GitHub public activity, right? But in the other hand, it's like if we don't have enough resources to handle this privately, probably might be that also the option. Just ask for, direct sponsorship on this and say like, look, people, this is the situation. If we don't have enough people to dedicate enough hours to these private releases, it's not going to happen anymore. And if there are not enough companies and people willing to sponsor this work, maybe just we can go in public and see what happens. Because yeah, the problem at the end is we don't get enough resources to just keep this working in private as we should expect, which is the ideal, right? But in the other hand, it's very hard to handle right now. So if we go into public, also the timelines for disclosing and all of this stuff, it doesn't matter anymore, right? We can having security fixes on a regular schedule, right? So if it's taking more than 90 days, it's going to take more than 90 days. That's also a reality because now there's not going to be any, non-disclosure policy or whatever in place because you can the vulnerabilities are known from zero, from the first moment, right? So that's also important to notice. But yeah, sorry, was a small retrospective on this. Go ahead, Rafa.
The only reason that I'm proposing that, the ideal world is handling that in private, and then we don't take that possibility of someone exploiting that issue before that gets released. Right. However, my whole point is that anyone could find that nowadays with AI. So this is already public, but if you think that uh, uh, with the new models of AI, this is already public. The only reason is that we are making things more complex for us to maintain.
I think there are a broad category of things that, yes, somebody plugging in prompts into an AI can find. But I also think there's a more dangerous class of vulnerabilities that AI is not sophisticated enough to find.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
and there's no way to like purely 100% distinguish that. Now, I'm not saying things that people don't already know, right? That maybe is a good segue into your other issue, which is, using LLMs to help triage the reports coming in. So yeah, but I do think like that back testing, I would like see if you could summon the worst vulnerabilities that Node have dealt with, and what would have happened if the thing would have been public. And because the risk that you run is if you do this and there's something horrible that happens, um, it ends up impacting the world in a large scale. Um, the consequences of that can be irreversible. And the damage to the Node project and orgs and teams wanting to use the Node project could be harmed irreparably. Um, and then I don't know what happens. I don't mean to be all like doom and gloom and you know, about it. But it's just like you don't want to have like a nightmare like that. And obviously, when we talk about the reports that are coming in that from AI stuff, none of the things that I've ever seen have the risk of doing that, right? Um, you know, but by having the by default stuff not be public, you kind of guard against the bigger, nastier things. Maybe there's a different workflow for bigger, nastier things. Maybe the person reporting, if they know it's some huge deal, remote code execution, things like that, maybe there's a different route. Like, hey, if you think your thing is super serious, maybe report it via this mechanism and not this other mechanism, because it's severe. And, I think that real security researchers would know and would not want the thing to be public. But they have to understand where they're reporting and whether that's going to be automatically made public or to what extent. And so you moving from a default of private with public being an exception to a default of public with private being an exception. And so you introduce the risk that those things will slip through when they shouldn't be. And anyway, I think it's a fascinating thing. I'm actually curious what folks at the Vulnerability Disclosures Working Group, which I've seen you at recently, what folks would think about this. But we do have like 13 minutes left, and maybe we should get to your LLM triage topic.
Okay, so the LLM one is also just for awareness. Like I've been talking with Beth. She's helping and she's also looking to the amount of reports we are receiving through HackerOne, and we are trying different strategies, including the automated close, sending message to our Slack channel, and we have been discussing about let's use AI to combat AI, right? But let's not just automate things with AI, because some reports might be real vulnerabilities that the LLM is not capable to identify, because either our threat model is not clear enough, or some is a new feature that is not covered in the documentation or something like that. So we are trying to create a kind of classifier. So if a kind of model where we only get notified about really potential vulnerabilities that are prone to be, I don't know, if they have a high chance to be valid and affecting real modules, or modules that affect different packages. For instance, if you find a vulnerability on Node.js HTTP, that might affect more people than a module affecting util.log, for instance. So this is still under draft. Like we are still discussing that, how would be the best approach. The only reason we wrote that issue is to discuss that at the Node.js Collaborator Summit. But that's pretty much the idea, unless I'm missing something, Beth.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. Also, the inverse as well. If there are some reports that come through and we see patterns that we can easily knock off to be like, hey, they mention a dependent like an express library or something. For us, that might be something easy for us to close automatically and take less effort. So yeah, filtering.
Just added to the items just in case someone else wrote something different for a different project that we could easily use. Otherwise, we could be that project that other projects will use.
All right.
Um,
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
uh, I say why not? I mean, just like do it. If like again, I look at like what's what's the worst that can happen with this, right? The worst that can happen is you have something sort of deprioritized that maybe shouldn't have been. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to discover that and you don't have some big nasty thing sitting around for too long. Um, so I say, why not? And you can continue to iterate on the process and improve it. And or if you go, oh no, we've made a terrible mistake, then you stop doing it. I think it's anything that helps sounds like a good idea to me. What system would you be using? Sorry if I missed that. Like what tooling?
Um, I have no idea. Like
Oh, okay.
you
No worries. I just thought I'd ask.
maybe Beth has some POC that I don't know, but I'm not an AI expert. Like I don't really use AI very often, so I will need to study that a bit.
The initial idea was just a like Python-based classifier, just whether we can give it a dump of JSON data and classify trends, and then maybe potentially after that feed it into an LLM with some additional context, like the threat model as plain copy. So like a two-level thing. Like ideally, the classifier gives us the hard and useful data rather than generic LLM stuff, and the LLM on top. Just gonna try tying them together. I think Matteo's been playing with Claude and piping it all to Claude and doing something similar for his own workflow.
Yeah, this is also something we're talking about quite a bit in the vulnerability disclosures working group at the OpenSSF. I think I've shared an issue for it. Um, this is a problem everyone is dealing with and just seeing more and more of. And I think this is one aspect of trying to help, right, with that. Um, and there's other dimensions that we're trying to attack, and because everybody's interested in helping to solve this problem. So hopefully, as time goes on, we will both improve how these things get handled. And I'm also trying to be aspirational about improving the output that LLMs are spitting out, right? To not be spitting out garbage and to be giving, consideration to threat models and distinguishing between application level vulnerabilities and framework level vulnerabilities. That's a huge category of stuff that we get, right? It's like, do you have a vulnerability here? And it's like, yes, it's a vulnerability, but not in the library. It's because you're doing stupid thing in the application, and the LLM being able to tell a user that and tell them that like, hey, don't report this to the project because this is not the project's problem to save you from yourself. Unless that is explicitly what the project is designed to do, like things like DOM Purify, right? Things like sanitization libraries. Like, yes, those are meant to do the thing that they say on the tin, and if they are not, then you have vulnerability. All right.
Okay. Is this yours, Chris? The CVE
Do,
kit?
do we want to talk about CVE Kit, everyone's favorite CVE management tool and generator? Yes, this is what I went on a hyper fixation spent my entire Friday and weekend doing. Maybe Thursday too. Did I start on Thursday? I think I might have started on Thursday. Um, I don't think I've ever written an application this fast. So of interest to people who uh, are CNA coordinators, let me share my screen. So this came up because we were doing a vulnerability, a CVE publication for one of the Express projects, which is Molter. And sort of always dreading having to use this tool that we use for CVEs. I shouldn't say dread, but because this is public and I'm not trying to blast the tool that we use is because it's fine. Um, I just find it to be kind of not ideal. No hate, no shade to the people for this project, but so I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Once I have it in order, 1 second, sorry. Okay. So, as folks know, we have a process that we follow for disclosure, right? We have the stuff on the project end with a GitHub advisory, and then we have like the CV publication, blah, blah, blah. Where's the share screen function? Yeah, I found it. Okay. All right. So here's the vulnerability. So in GitHub, when we do our advisory, either somebody has already created it and filed it this way, or we've done it. But anyway, we go in here, we put our title. Once upon a time, we used to request a CV from GitHub. Now we have our own. So we'll go into this thing called Vulnogram here. Well, let me skip that for a second. Yeah, we put our description, we put the information about the package, we put the severity, ideally using CVSS 3 or 4, which has this little calculator here. Put in what type of weakness or weaknesses are involved, and then we have, give credits to people and whatever other chatter that we have in the comments below. And then, there will be usually a private private security fork branch that's created to push like the fix to, and then people can review it, and that's all in the context of GitHub. Then it comes time to do the CVE. The first thing we do is just reserve the ID, and at that point there's no CVE record. And for this we've been using, there's like, I want to say 3 different tools that are kind of like public for people's use. But we've always used this one called Vulnogram, probably because that's the one that Red Hat kind of said, hey, use this one. As we're under the Red Hat CNA. So that looks like this. Yes, it's beautiful. And this is the new one. There's like an older one, but you would come in here and you would see. Now I don't even know where to go. I don't remember. Where is it? Oh no. Oh no. This one. So here's where we would go to reserve a CVE. So here's the ones that are reserved and not published yet. Here are the ones that we've published. And we would click reserve, and then we would come in here and paste that in. And then later, when we're ready to release, then we would come here and enter information like here's our CVE ID, blah, blah, blah. Here's the CWE, blah, blah, blah. And then we have to figure out what fields to fill in here, which I kind of never remember. Is it the package or is it the product? What's the vendor mean? What's the project mean? What do we put for modules, components, or features? Version range, we need to always put that it's semver. So there's a lot of fields here which we don't really care about, aren't relevant, and just the interface is kind of not very intuitive or clean. It does have a lot of fields. It has support for a lot of the CVE schema, but stuff that we're not really concerned about. Anyway, and then, so yeah, you go to you publish your CVE once you have everything in order and hope that you didn't get anything wrong. Anyway, I created another one of these, which is just a random art plugin thing that I have. Pay no mind. It's available in Firefox and Google Chrome if you're interested. Displays a different piece of art from the Art Institute of Chicago every day. So I created this. So we don't have to use Volnogram anymore. It contains all the fields that we care about and none of the fields that we don't care about. Let me put in my credentials here so you can see. You can select the production or the test API in the top right here. Wait, did I do my? Okay, let me API key and OpenJS. Once I have my credentials in here, I can go and see. Um, Here's the CVE list. I don't have it broken down by which ones. On the right side, you could see which ones reserved, which ones are published. I can load an old record. And so here's the information for another Multer vulnerability. It loads, they have their fields on the left. We have the JSON output on the right. I can click publish to update it. It has all the information that's easily copy pastable because we still use GitHub advisories. So we would be opening this page up and then copy pasting the values in here. And yeah, if there is any changes if you're not publishing a new CVE and you're updating an existing one, I have this diff view here to see what changes are going to get pushed up. There's a split and a unified view of the diff. Can add more affected products. Now you can add credits. Ulysses was going to add a PR for this, but it was already done by the time he made that comment. So yeah. GitHub repo. PR is welcome. File issues, file bugs. Give it a star. Ulysses?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. The tool is awesome. I used it already to publish a CVE last week, and it's much more smooth than, just fulfilling the vulnogram. Well, vulnogram is not bad, but this is just shape what we need, so that's perfect. I was thinking, like, in terms of the future of the product, there is any option to simplify the way of extracting data from the advisory and including it here? Like there is like this step. I know that it's a different source and everything, so probably worth discussing a little more deeper. Maybe it's a different tool, but the idea is if we can extract the fields from the advisory directly to fill this here, that will be great. Not sure, Chris, if you want to work on that. That's a separate thing, I assume. But yeah, just curious if you are already on that or not. Just before I start doing stuff on this, because I was thinking maybe one option is to just go with a, I don't know, Chrome extension kind of thing that we can actually see even more stuff. Like, for example, if there was a CB publish and pulling some data, I don't know, over the advisories, right? So we can have a better tracking, or just having a simple click, just say like, bring this advisory as a JSON and include this somehow, like having the option of inputting a
Yeah.
JSON here. I don't know. Yeah, I was like getting the chance to brainstorm.
Yeah, we could do something like it wouldn't be difficult for me to like make this JSON block editable and you could paste in there. Because the mechanism would load exactly the same as when it's loading from the API, right? So I don't have to rewrite any real new code for that. The other thing you said is more interesting, which is could we like essentially import from the advisory? And you'd mentioned like a browser extension or something. I think the cleanest way to do that would be like, yes, you could maybe write a browser extension, although I'm not sure if that's feasible with in terms of like cross. I think you'd have probably a security boundary that you couldn't cross. So I don't know, maybe not, or at least not without like an intermediary step. But maybe one thing that we could do is so the CVE comes last, right? And you have to have a public uh, disclosure of your thing already. And we know that the OpenJS Security Advisory's website does not count as that publication because, all right, Sieben, doesn't count for that publication because it doesn't contain all the required information per the CNA rules. So the GitHub advisory page that we publish counts as that. And so that needs to come before the CVE. So I wonder if once that's public, can we query, is there a GitHub API that we can query
There is.
for the vulnerability information? And if that exists, then if the flow is that we could add a feature in CVE kit that says load populate these fields from GitHub advisory. And that would be a really easy thing to do. If the API exists and that we can get the fields that we need, then we could whip that up pretty quickly.
Yeah, the API exists for sure.
Okay.
I'm using that with the GitHub CLI and use some sort of GraphQL probably stuff syntax, but yeah, it's working. It's a post request anyway, so we can just try to get that and make it work. So that might be one option. But yeah, it's true that if we have that public anyway, then we can make it work because we don't need authentication or whatever. Yes, it's very simple. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And then you don't have to copy paste stuff from
Yeah. Also, if you want to fit changes, it's more easy because you can just say like tweet the last advisory, see the changes and publish. You can do the bypass at the moment and just publish new changes. The typical thing, you change the description or whatever 2 days later. Then we can do that. I mean, it's not very often, but yeah, that can be also be a side effect that we solve.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, is it quicker to just copy paste the description box, or is it quicker to click and copy paste the GitHub advisory ID to reload the thing? I don't know. It's kind of the same, but yeah. So the more, yeah. Yeah, that'd be
I mean,
good.
having like an extension that can generate a button, say like copy this as a JSON thing can be easy because we can extract the data from the DOM. We don't need to, from the DOM of the advisory. I mean, we don't even need to have the authentication stuff.
Yeah. But if you can load it from this API, why do you want to scrape the
Yeah.
DOM of GitHub?
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess we can work on it. But yeah, thank you, Chris. It has been an awesome tool, honestly. I save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do need to add, right now there's no ability to load like a random CVE. You can load from your own CVEs, but you can't like
Yep.
load just a random one or load one of your own without auth, right?
Yeah.
So we could add that. Pasting in JSON could be added pretty easily. There's a couple like small, not really bugs, but sort of display issues. Like it tries to load the list when you don't have credentials in all the boxes, so it fails. But like whatever, put your stuff and then click the reload and it's fine. Um, Also, like I do have hard coded that there's like a parameter that you can provide um, uh, to your publish API request that makes it so that it will enforce having weaknesses and severe and CVSS score, which I think
Mhm.
everything should have. So I just hard coded that in there. And right now it gives like a API error that if you don't know what that is, you don't really know what the problem is with the document. Obviously, you can Google it, but I should add
Yep.
something that actually is a better error message for the end user. But everything else is good. I could probably remove the right now it prevents you from publishing to the production API. I introduced that early
Yep.
on because I didn't want to be accidentally making mistakes doing that. But now I feel like it's good to go, especially now with the diff confirmation that
Yep.
you can see that changes before you publish. And I can probably just remove that restriction and then call it 1.0.
Hmm.
And yeah. So it's cool
Yep.
that we both so far have used it sort of. We use it to publish two CVs, but we still use Vulnogram. We copy pasted and put into
Yep.
Vulnogram, and
True.
Vulnogram actually did the publish. So we still need to get to the first
The full
one
process. Yeah.
actually published with this. But yeah, I'm sure we'll do it soon enough. But yeah, I want to make it like clean, it's clean, it contains the stuff that we care about. I don't want to
Yep.
add a million other things that only some people care about, and because then it just becomes harder to use. So I just like to keep with that sort of that spirit of that design goal and keeping it simple and streamlined and not confusing. I did think about things like, having like an auto complete here, and then it does like little pill interfaces, then you can click an X to get rid
Yep.
of it. But I was like, it's a lot of code and complexity and potential bugs for not a lot of value. But I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe in
Agree.
future. I don't know. One thing we could do is go and update all of our old CVs that are missing credits because a lot of them don't have.
True. Yeah, and we can test this out. Yeah.
And then and so we can update those with credits. And yeah, cool.
Yeah. Awesome, Chris.
I should probably get to doing real job stuff now that I've spent all my time doing that the last couple days.
Okay. See you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ulysses. Talk to you later.
See you.